Since Ruby Franke's arrest, her family has slowly started coming out about what they knew in all of this and how they've been dealing as a family with everything that has been brought to light. At first, Ruby's sisters Bonnie, Julie, and Ellie posted a shared statement to Instagram following the arrest, and people had actually criticized them a lot, feeling like they didn't do all that they could to help Ruby's children, and people really got on them about what more they could have done. And Julie and Bonnie ended up coming out with videos on their YouTube channel to try and combat some of the comments that they were getting, explaining a little bit further that they did all that they could legally, but the only person who really could have done something but didn't was Ruby's husband, Kevin. The sister stated that they did not know what was going on behind the walls of Ruby's home or Jody's, so when the world was learning about what had occurred, they were hearing about it for the first time as well. A while ago, people had noticed that Ruby had distanced herself from her siblings and her own parents due to being a part of Connections. And there were times that her and Kevin on Connections had discussed in videos that they were not speaking to their family because they were not living in truth and clearly did not believe the things that they were currently believing in. And so they were just not going to be in their lives. And when this happened, a lot of people who had paid attention to Ruby over the years started to really get concerned about Jody and the whole Connections group, feeling like it was giving cult vibes with the way that she felt the need to cut everyone off. And now we're hearing from Ruby's sister Bonnie more about Connections and how Ruby's kids were taking in what she passed on to them and how they even tried to pass those teachings on to Bonnie's kids. She posted a video on her channel titled "How I Told My Kids About Aunt Ruby," and she talked about how her and Ruby's family used to be really intertwined. They have kids around the same age, and she was the first sibling after Ruby to start having kids, so they immediately started raising their children alongside each other. But Connections really changed her and her whole family, and Bonnie started to notice how the teachings were affecting her children and how her kids were coming to her talking about how their cousins were saying this and they just weren't having fun anymore.
After Ruby started implementing what she was learning in Connections, her actions naturally bled through her family. And so when the kids would get together and play, they would start correcting my kids. Essentially, they were counseling and giving what they had learned in therapy. They were teaching that to my kids, which was odd, and that had caused some friction between the cousins.
She said she then told Ruby that she didn't want to have the kids hang out anymore, and Ruby was really mad about that. But she said she trusted her gut and she did feel better after telling Ruby, and says that from this time and when Ruby decided to actually cut the entire family off, there wasn't that much time in between, and said that she was mostly just really upset that they wouldn't join her in her Connections journey.
Ruby was really upset that we wouldn't join Connections. She was upset that my kids didn't want to follow in the pathway that she was having her kids follow, as far as just like mindset and way of doing things and verbiage. A lot of it had to do with her verbiage.
This is something that Sherry talked about when she previously went on a podcast. She had mentioned that when she went home with her parents, she would have to talk a certain way, and her parents were very particular about this language that they were using.
Whenever I'd go home, you know, it was like, oh, we use this language, we talk about things like this. And then I noticed, like, when I would leave my family, like, I would just feel like spiritually drained. Like, I just wouldn't feel great.
Yeah.
I would like overhear conversations and just like find myself internally like, this isn't right, like this isn't okay. And so it got to the point where I was like, I can't keep pretending like everything's fine.
Bonnie in her video went on to say that her and Ruby would talk in circles about things prior to her cutting them off because she had made up all these stories about things that happened in her childhood that just weren't true. She said the whole family would sit down to discuss what she was saying, and they had to have conversations one-on-one with each other to really determine if they were lies or not. And they found out that they really were lies, and can see now that this is all something that Jody had basically planted into her mind. And as we've heard from people that have spoken out about being a part of Jodi's teachings and therapy, that she would basically convince people of things that never even happened and even get people to admit to doing things that they never even did, which is just so scary.
As things have unfolded now, we can see that this is something that Jodi has done, is she gets in people's lives and she plants these ideas or accusations against people when that is just not true. And so we really came to the conclusion that the things she's saying are untrue. We don't know why she's saying this. We don't know what her end goal is. In the beginning, I just thought, well, she's making things up so that she has something to discuss in therapy, is honestly what I thought. The things that she was accusing all of us of were just abhorrent, but also comical at how untrue they were.
She later went on to reveal how she found out about Ruby's arrest and said that Julie had called her that day and she immediately knew something was wrong. She told Bonnie what happened, and she said they were basically learning more information as they were all on the phone. They wouldn't hang up with each other because, more and more information just kept coming out that day, and they just stayed on the phone to comfort each other. They called their other sister Ellie, and their whole world just came down.
And so me and Julie and Ellie, we stayed on the phone and we didn't get off the phone. As we were learning more details, we couldn't let each other go. We just stayed on the phone together, I think for hours. We did call my parents that night, and that was very difficult. I think we were up all hours of the night. We just couldn't not be on the phone together, even though there was nothing to be said.
Bonnie also shared on her story that she's been receiving a lot of support as time has gone on. Like I said in the beginning, when the sisters spoke out, they received a lot of backlash, but people have seemingly changed their opinions and heard them out in that they did all that they could with what they knew. And it seems they've been getting a lot more support.
I just cannot believe how incredibly kind people are. I definitely acknowledged the bad comments being said against us, the flat out just lies being said against us, and so that was acknowledged. But I have to acknowledge I was really scared to start posting again, and the response has been more than I could intake. And so for those of you that watch and care, it does mean a lot.
She also mentioned that a lot of their family and former friends have contacted them to ask if they can help them in this time and just to check in on them and give some support, which has been nice. It's truly just so crazy to see what has unfolded with this entire family. I mean, I found Ruby's sister Ellie's channel sometime when I was in high school, and she and her husband didn't have any kids yet. They just vlogged, the two of them, and I watched their videos all the time. And I remember then I found Bonnie's channel, and I only knew of the two of them. And then I started hearing about Ruby. And once people started calling out Ruby, there was just no going back. There were just things that kept on coming out all these years. The first video I ever made on Ruby was back in 2020. And there's just been so much stuff that's happened since then. This family that was once so close, and Ruby even had videos on her channel before she met Jodi where she was talking about always wanting her family to be together, even if they didn't have the same beliefs. She would never want something like that to come in between her family, and to see how connections really did tear her family apart and the lengths that she was willing to go to be living in truth. It's so freaking sad. And it really is just so scary when you think about the fact that this is not the first family that Jodi has worked with. It's not the only family that she's worked with. We've heard people that have worked with her come out and talk about their experiences, but there is probably so many more that we don't even know about. And that is just horrifying to think about, that she has had her hands in so many people's lives, spreading this nonsense, this horrible, life ruining, just awful. There's like so many ways you could describe it because it's just so bad, but she's truly just so sick for teaching people this and believing this and spreading this around. Like, she's truly responsible for ruining so many families. And obviously these people that do give her money, they are to blame as well because they do buy into it and they support it and they practice what she's preaching to them, and that doesn't make them entirely innocent. Wrong is still wrong, even if someone is trying to tell you that it's actually good. Like, no, you're not getting away with that. But the way that she is like the leader of this is crazy. Like, it is crazy. And we're seeing and we're hearing firsthand how this has all really affected Ruby's whole family. And it's so heartbreaking, this whole situation. But as of right now, that is what Ruby's sister Bonnie has come out to say about the situation. If there's any further information about this case, I will let you guys know. I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye, guys.